And welcome to the program on this finally Friday. Thanks for joining us. 106.13 on this finally Friday afternoon, and it is getting hot and humid outside. Temperatures are now approaching 90 degrees with heat indexes already at 97 degrees. And we still got a handful of degrees to add on to that for a high temperature. I'm meteorologist Justin Storm. I'll be running down the forecast coming up here in just a moment. But if you want to join in on our program today and ask any questions, feel free to do so. Give us a call on the Red Wing Shoe line. That's 701-293-9000. Or emails to the program. You can send that to weather@flagfamily.com. You could try the ag email, but Bridgette's not here, so I won't be able to get your questions. You can also drop some comments on Facebook or YouTube Live, where we live stream every day. You can also find us there on Acres TV. Again, like I said, it's a hot one out there right now. Temperatures are at 89 degrees. We have a south wind at 23 miles an hour, gusting to 32, and it's going to stay windy throughout the rest of this afternoon. We'll have highs topping out in the mid-90s today with a chance for a few showers and storms rolling through the overnight hours, of which a couple of those could be on the strong to severe side. However, that will favor more in the Northern Valley, and to put bets on it, we'll probably just miss most of the showers here in Fargo. I do suspect we'll probably see a few showers, a couple rumbles of thunder through the Southern Valley, but definitely the bulk of it will be to our north. And then a few showers linger in the morning hours for tomorrow on Saturday morning. They exit by the afternoon, though. More hazy sunshine tomorrow, low 90s. It's going to be humid. South winds about 10 to 15 miles per hour. And as we head through the evening hours of your Saturday, and especially overnight Saturday, we'll see another round of some showers and storms rolling through the area. Again, more of them will track to our northwest and north from Fargo, but we'll still see a chance for a few storms. And again, a few of those could be on the strong to severe side. And then that exits our area Sunday morning. Sunday morning to early afternoon will be dry. It will warm up quickly, and the humidity is still going to be around. We'll hit a high in the upper 80s before more scattered showers and storms develop through the later afternoon of Sunday, and that will carry over into Sunday night. And again, a few storms Sunday afternoon and Sunday evening may again be on that strong to severe side. So we'll kind of see three windows for some strong to severe weather over the next handful of days. Now, as I mentioned, Bridgette's not in the studio today. Dean's playing hooky. He's I don't know. I think he's driving somewhere down in Nebraska, or maybe he's going to Chicago again. I don't know. He left early because he wanted an early head start on his vacation, and that's fine. He can have fun down there in Nebraska. So instead, I have a guest host with me today, and that guest host is going to be Bill. Thanks for joining me, Bill. How are you doing today?
I'm quite well. It's a nice warm day with some wind finally. We had about 10 days where there was no wind.
I know. It was. It's like the first day of July was windy, and then it hadn't been windy in like 20 days, which is a little outside the normal compared to how windy the spring and early summer have been. But in all reality, this is the time of the year where the wind just goes light. For the most part,
than normal. I mean,
it has been. It's been about 20 days since we've actually had a wind to talk about. So this is kind of catching people off guard for a bit. But, that end of July, early August, that's usually that time we see all this heat build in. And typically when you get this kind of heat to build in, outside of your general storm systems and upper level disturbances that track through, the winds do usually get a little lighter, and that's where we don't have any of the steering to move the pop-up storms around. And that's why we've been having a lot of these isolated pop-up storms where it just drops 3, 4, 5 inches of rain in one spot, but everywhere around it doesn't get any rain. Now, Bill, tell me a little bit about yourself, a little background history on you, because you're a past farmer. You used to farm sugar beets, soybeans, corn, wheat, and also durum and barley back in the day. Is that correct?
Yes, that is, and navy beans.
Navy. Okay, so navy beans is a new one. And jump a little bit closer up on that mic for me, Bill.
You bet.
What are navy beans?
Well, baked beans are navy beans.
Okay. So why did you stop because you used to farm durum and barley, and then you stopped farming those items. Why was that, and when did you stop growing those?
Right around 1993, it started raining a lot more. And if you show a durum crop when it's ripe, a glass of water, it'll go out of condition.
Oh, really?
Durum is very touchy on being just right for making semolina, for making pasta.
Okay.
And when it's ripe, if it gets rained on, it hurts the quality dramatically.
Really?
So we dropped out of durum. We dropped out of barley primarily because it was hard to make malting quality. They kept changing what they wanted for malting quality. Navy beans, we just noticed in the fall we were getting more and more acres of soybeans, and I think a lot of farms have done this. And we had 2 combines at the time. We always had one combine sitting around for 3 days to catch the last 5 acres of navy beans that weren't quite ripe. And it just made more sense to have both combines working on soybeans.
Right. So I'm imagining some of these items you're talking about, the durum not really liking the water when it's ready for harvest or getting ripe. I guess I would imagine that would be more of a Western North Dakota crop. Where did you farm at, if you don't mind me asking?
Not at all.
Area?
No. Not north of Castleton, a little town called Amenia.
Okay.
Amenia. It's in between Castleton and Arthur, if you know the area.
About 20, 25 miles northwest of here?
Yes, exactly. Yep,
cool.
Not very far.
All right, cool. Well, we got some fun things me and Bill do on the program today. We're going to be having a guest join us in our next segment. That's going to be Bill McBee, and he's the North Dakota soy processor at the new crush plant up in Castleton. Is that correct, Bill?
The name of the company is North Dakota Soybean Processors. Bill's kind of one of the head cheeses out there at the plant. He can tell us all about their grand opening that's coming up, and are they taking loads of soybeans, and if so, how many bushels have they accepted already, and how do you sign up to deliver there?
Right. That's going to be a very interesting conversation because we had a couple of folks on a few, oh man, this might even be a couple of few months ago. It might have been early spring or late winter when we had the 2 gentlemen on, but they were kind of talking about how the project was going and signing up contracts back then. So it'll be interesting to see how that's evolved and where they're at now compared to that. And in addition, I'm hoping to have Bill talk to us a little bit about how the construction of the whole plant has been going through springs and winters up here, and then also possibly transition a little bit to renewable aviation fuel with the whole soybean aviation fuel, whether or not this is going to be something that's really taking off, or just kind of what kind of knowledge he has on that. I think will be interesting to pick his brain on the whole aviation soybean. And speaking of aviation, maybe not for aviation, but you're retired from the Air Force, correct?
I am, yes. 14 years active duty, 2 years in active reserve, and 18 years with the North Dakota Air Guard.
Wow, so that's a long career. First of all, thank you for your service.
Oh, you're welcome.
And I can only imagine how many things that you've been able to accomplish and work on in that many years in the Air Force. It'll be fun to hear a few of those stories on some of the things that you did.
Yeah, happy to do it.
Very interesting. Well, if you're listening and you have some questions, feel free to give us a call again on the Red Wing Shoe line. That phone studio number is 701-293-9000. Or again, you can shoot us an email at weather@flagfamily.com. Now, Bill, adding on to a lot of the things that we've kind of already teased a little bit about, things that you have done in your career, I mean, the list just doesn't stop. It just keeps going and going, and then I find something else out new about you, and I'm blown away, and I can only imagine how many different stories and different fields of life that you have and you'd be able to share with us. And just kind of on the related note to agriculture, you were also a past member of the American Crystal Sugar Board and the World Association of Beet and Cane Growers, correct?
Yes, I was president of the World Beet and Cane Growers. I was a member of the board at Crystal Sugar. I was also president of the local Red River Valley Sugar Beet Growers Association for 1 year.
Right. And what was it like being a part of those different groups and organizations? What were some of the things that you did or were in charge of, or that you guys as a collective kind of worked on?
Any board of directors, especially with a farmer-owned cooperative, has 2 functions: hiring and firing the CEO and setting policy. You hire somebody to run your cooperative and trust them to get the job done. They are in charge of the staff.
Right.
And then you also try to pass whatever policies that you decide on with your fellow board members and staff back to the shareholders of that cooperative. That's a pretty big job. And I've often joked about there are 15 farmers who are members of the board of directors at Crystal Sugar. And anytime you get 15 farmers to agree on anything, be afraid. Be very, very afraid.
Well, were there any times that happened?
Oh,
Things
yeah.
just weren't going the way that you wanted to, and you had to take action on it, or?
The Roundup Ready sugar beets was a really big decision. We wanted to make sure that our customers who bought our sugar knew that nothing from genetic engineering can go into sugar, because all genetic traits are carried in in protein, and sugar is pure carbohydrate. Therefore, nothing can be in it.
So I could imagine that back then, especially in today's world, could have been and probably was a really big thing. How did you go about portraying that type of information to move on to using that? I mean, it's night and day compared to pre and post.
Oh, absolutely.
Roundup Ready sugar beets.
In fact, I'll tell you a story about that. The first fall that we harvested Roundup Ready sugar beets, a neighbor of ours was driving the defoliator tractor in the field, and he asked how we liked the Roundup Ready sugar beets, and he had been retired from farming for a while. And I said, I'll tell you, Dick, this is the third time I've been in this field this year. And normally with sugar beets, we would have been going back and forth with cultivators and sprayers 12 times.
Wow.
And there was a silence on the radio for about 30 seconds. And then he just goes, "Oh, that must be nice."
I can imagine only how much time, money, effort, and in the end, increased yield that whole transition made. So what was it like as a plant pre-post growing Roundup Ready sugar beets? Was it just a huge influx in production? Were there policies or things that needed to be changed to make up for that, or?
Every year at every farmer-owned cooperative, sugar beet cooperative, the board of directors decides how much surface area that you can plant per share that you own in the cooperative, and that's based on recommendations from staff, and those recommendations are based on how many tons per acre do they think the new varieties of beet seed will grow. How much moisture is in the soil right now. It's a guess. It's a guessing game.
Right.
But it's also designed to keep the factories full and get the full use out of them, because that maximizes the payments to the shareholders.
Right. And just kind of speaking along the lines of sugar beets and crystal sugar, Bridgette has been telling us, or has told us a few times, about the unique way of storage that's done at our plants here in North Dakota and up by Hillsboro and whatnot, that we can keep our beets through the whole winter. We can keep production going well into the spring if it's cold enough, because we're able to keep those piles from spoiling compared to other locations. My question is to you, with as warm as a winter as we had, I know that there were a lot of concerns coming from Crystal Sugar within their storage area. What was it like, if you have any information on that, for how they were able to do it, or if there was an impact at all with how warm it was been and the concern of keeping those beets cold enough from not spoiling?
And that was a huge question all winter. How are we going to do? How are we going to make it to next spring? When I was the World Beet and Cane president, the European sugar beet growers would dearly love to use their factories for 272 days. They use them for about 120. Sugar beets, when you put them in a pile, are still alive. They're breathing. And you have to keep them below 55 degrees to slow their respiration, and keep them above freezing until you're ready to actually freeze them for the rest of the season. And this last winter, you normally need 400 hours of fan time to push freezing air through the pile. The pile is 28 feet high and a half mile long and about 170 feet wide, 75,000 tons.
Wow.
And we only get this last winter, there were only 400 hours of below freezing temperatures that we could use to freeze those piles. So the staff...
And how many hours did you say you needed?
600.
So you were short 200 hours from keeping those piles cold.
There were several of the piles that we did put tarps on to keep them frozen until April. And we knew that the top 2 feet of those piles, there are sensors in the piles that tell us that the top 2 feet had not frozen yet. And so the staff took the chance of having bulldozers on the top of the piles pushing sugar beets off to discard them in fields so that they wouldn't later rot and run sugar juice down into the frozen part of the pile. And it worked. We did have discards, lots of discards compared to normal, but it was a miracle. It was a miracle of how little discards we had because of that.
So you took a little bit to save the masses, and I would imagine that probably was a huge success.
It was a huge success, and it was a big chance to take.
I could only imagine what was going on through people's minds
Yeah.
during all of that.
Yep.
Very interesting. Well, we'll probably add more onto that conversation as well as several other things that we'll talk about with Bill, but we're going to take a few moments here. We're going to get caught up with the American Ag Network, and we're going to switch from sugar beets to soybeans here. When we come back, we'll have Bill McBee from the North Dakota Soy Processor, the crush plant over in Castleton. We'll be touching a little bit about what's going on at the plant over there, their grand opening, and how their contracts have been setting up, and if they're taking in any beans yet, and if they are, how many they're able to storage. Again, if you have any questions and you want to ask those questions for me, Bill, or Bill McBee, feel free to give us a call, 701-293-9000. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. And welcome back to the program. Thanks for rejoining us. 1:25 now on this finally Friday afternoon. And we're making our switch from sugar over to soybeans. And our guest that's joining us today, that's Bill McBee. Bill, thanks for joining us this afternoon. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Luckily, I'm inside in air conditioning right now.
Yeah, no kidding. It's a very hot one out there. Bill, I want to start off by just, kind of introducing you to us and Where are you from, what you're doing, and how things are going right now.
Sure. Here, like I said, my name is Bill McBee. I'm with North Dakota Soybean Processors, and I'm currently serving as the commercial manager. I moved up here about a year and a half ago from Indiana, where I had worked for CGB, which is one of the parent companies of North Dakota Soybean Processors. And glad to say that the winter wasn't so bad here this past winter, but I'm understanding that was a pretty mild winter too. So
yeah, I like to refer to it as a cold spring.
Yeah, it was definitely not what I was expecting for North Dakota, but we're actually building a soybean processing plant in Castleton, North Dakota. We started actually receiving soybeans last week and plan to start the plant up here later this summer.
Very, very interesting, and that's one of the things that I wanted to touch on is if you're taking in soybeans and where you're getting them from. But before that, how'd they get you to move up here to North Dakota?
Actually, it was a great opportunity to be a part of this project and start a greenfield soybean processing plant is something that I'm very excited about. I grew up in northern Indiana, and so had some cold winters, maybe not as cold, but familiar with snow. And so, to be honest, North Dakota reminds me a lot of Indiana as far as being a very ag-focused, ag-centered state that is very proud of its agriculture history, and I'm proud to be part of soybean processing, bringing that to North Dakota.
Super cool. Well, with the plant as a whole over there in Castleton, how long has the project been going? Where is it at right now, and how far away from either a grand opening or operations are you?
Well, we started the process probably 4 years ago, looking into building another processing plant. The official groundbreaking ceremony was 2 years ago in August, and we're actually going to be celebrating a kind of ribbon cutting open house on August 7th of this year. The plant actually will start commissioning phase after that, and we'll start production probably sometime later in September when we get fully in production. But that was kind of the timeline we're looking at. As far as our August 7th event, we are going to have a official ribbon cutting in the morning. The afternoon, we'll have an open house to the community, producers from 1 to 5, and then community individuals from 5 to 7. If somebody's interested in attending that, we ask that they call in and RSVP that they're coming at 701-895-1010, extension 1.
Awesome. And for someone who just heard that, they're interested in doing that, is there a website that they could go to get that number or either online information about the ribbon cutting?
Sure. Our website is ndsoy.com, and that's have our cell phone number on there, or excuse me, our phone number on there and contact information there as well.
Okay. Now, when it came to construction of the plant there, which it sounds like you guys are basically wrapping up here, how did the construction and building of this plant go over the last couple of years? Were there any setbacks or challenges that needed to be overcome, or was it just a pretty straightforward build?
Well, the first winter was a little bit rougher, the winter of 23. So 22, 23, and we did learn that you can pour concrete in the middle of the winter. It just takes some heating blankets and a little extra money, but we did what we had to keep on schedule with the project through that winter. Obviously, this past winter was much kinder to us and helped a lot with the construction, although then we turned into a kind of a wet, damp spring, and so that created some issues. But through all things, you work through it, and we're staying on schedule.
Right. Very interesting. Well, you had already kind of touched on this, that you're taking in beans, and we had a couple of members from the plant on several months ago talking about early contract offerings and whatnot. So I'm going to be interested to see how the contracts were set, how many you guys were able, if you're able to get the contracts that you wanted to, and what you're bringing into the plant as well as capacity. But we got to get caught up with local news here first, Bill. So when we come back, we'll get those questions answered. I got a few questions on soybeans related to aviation renewable fuels as well, if you're able to answer a few of those, Bill.
Sure, be
Awesome.
glad to.
Well, we'll get caught up with local news, and we'll get all that done and so much more when we come back. And welcome back to the program on this finally Friday. This is Weather and Ag in Focus. 134 this afternoon, and temperatures approaching 90. Heat indexes approaching 100 degrees right now. We'll have a rundown on that forecast coming up here in just a moment. If you want to join in on our conversation, though, we're talking with Bill McBee. He's with North Dakota Soy Processors at the crush plant in Castleton. And if you have any questions for him, reach out to us. 701-293-9000 is the Red Wing shoe line. And Bill, before we get caught up with local news there, we were kind of teasing a little bit on some of the questions we were going to talk about here. And this will be in reference a little bit to a few of our past guests that we had from the plant as well. We were talking about early contracts and contracts in general with soybeans and the plant. How has that been on your side of operations? Have you been able to fulfill the contracts that you guys were looking for or that you wanted? Or are you guys still looking for more soybeans to come to North Dakota Soy Processors?
Oh, we still have bids posted out there. Obviously, for old crop beans, it's going to depend on when we actually get the plant fired up, how many of those we'll need. So there's a kind of a little bit in flux on that, waiting for the official startup of the plant. But once we get it up and running, which we hope to be fully running by harvest time, 1st of October, then we've got quite a few beans to purchase. We're going to be processing 125,000 bushels per day. and the plant runs 24/7. So we'll be close to 3.7 million bushels of beans per month that we'll need to be buying. As you said, we contract beans. We don't contract acres. We contract beans with producers so they can forward contract for a given month. And we use the Chicago Board of Trade to base the price off of, and then we have a basis off of that when we get our delivered price to Castleton.
So 45 million bushels per year, roughly.
It's a lot of beans.
A lot of beans.
Yes, it's going to be a lot. And when you look at it on a per acre basis, we're going to need about 100,000 acres of beans per month.
So this is, in a way, going to be a new place for beans to be going up in our area. Where are you getting your beans from? Is it directly from farmers in the local area, or what does the outreach look like for that?
So we'll buy both from directly from the producers and also from other elevators. We'll need to be buying from both at different times. Typical rule for a soybean processing plant is you're going to buy about 100-mile radius of the plant. Obviously, that'll depend on the size of the crop we have each year. But we'll even pull some as far as way as Canada. There'll be some beans come down as they take soybean meal back up. We'll pull over into Minnesota. But predominantly, we're going to be in the 3 or 4 counties surrounding Castleton here is where we'll be buying from.
I see. And has there been any concerns or talks about what the crop looks like right now? I'm completely unaware of what soybeans look like for the type of year we've had, or just in general, if it looks like it's going to be either a crap crop or an okay crop. Is there any concerns or talks about what the crop is looking like so far with being able, or with such late planting and how wet the spring was, on demand or expectating what you guys were going to be bringing in?
Yeah, the beans are a little bit behind normal. I mean, the wet, cool spring definitely slowed development there. But actually, if there's moisture there, the beans love the heat. And so the last couple of weeks, as we've warmed up, we've seen the beans really improve a lot. Kind of general rule of thumb on soybeans is you need August rains. That's what really determines the final yield on the beans. And so we're still hopeful for a good crop. Like I said, we're going to need some rains in August there to help us get there.
Right. And the good news is I think that we have a couple of those opportunities to get some rains in here. Not necessarily a lot of them, but definitely a couple opportunities as we head into the first half of August. And really that first week looks like we should be able to bring in a few scattered storms along with what's coming through this weekend. If we can dump a good inch around most of the area and then just keep it nice and hot and dry like it's going to be for the next week, I would imagine that would do a good number on the soybean crop out there, right?
Yeah, that would definitely help. And it's each year breeds its own challenge, but Mother Nature and the crops always seem to come along and feel like we're still hopeful for a decent crop.
So, Bill, this is Bill Hale. So if folks are still interested in signing up, they go to that same ndsoy.com website, and then what do they do?
Well, really, if they haven't signed up before, they need to call in. Okay. So that they can find the phone number there on that website, the 701-895-1010, extension 1, and then talk to one of the merchandisers here, Zach, Ben, or Mitch, and they can get you set up. And then we have a free app that we'll have you download, and then you can access the bids there. And but you can also call in and discuss prices and contracting options with our merchandisers and set up a forward contract if someone's interested.
And I assume you'll have somebody at the open house doing that stuff too.
Oh, for sure. We'll have all of our merchandising staff there available. If somebody wants to come there from 1 to 5 during our open house, we'll be glad to get you set up at that time.
Awesome. And Bill, for those that are just joining us, tell us again or remind us again about that opening or the ribbon cutting and the open house that you're going to be having at the crush plant there in Castleton coming up here on August 7th.
It's basically a time to kind of celebrate those who helped us get here to this point and kind of start the process of starting the plant up. So like I said, we'll have a private ceremony in the morning where we'll do the ribbon cutting, but we'll have an open house to the producers from 1 to 5 p.m. And then for the community from 5 to 7 p.m. And we'll actually have a charter bus on site to do driving tours of the facility. There's still some construction going on, so it's not a ability to walk through the plant, but we can definitely do driving tours and have some of our operation people there to answer questions about the process of how we take soybeans and turn that into soybean meal and soybean oil.
Awesome. And Bill was telling me that you might have a little bit of information on renewable aviation fuel in terms of soybean. For somebody like myself who has little agriculture background, yet alone renewable fuel background, what can you tell me about that opening market in terms of aviation fuel from soybeans?
Sure. So the renewable fuel standards, or RFS, is kind of what kind of started the whole process of biodiesel. And then we kind of evolved into a product called renewable diesel. And basically it's a process of taking hydro treating the feedstock of soybean oil or used cooking oil, and then turning that into renewable diesel. So to make the aviation fuel, or known as sustainable aviation fuel, or SAF, they just further refine that from the hydro treating process down to the aviation fuel quality. So this is one area that we're really expecting a lot of growth. Currently, we started in 23, we're about 2,000 barrels per day of sustainable aviation production in the U.S. At the end of 2024, we're expected to have capacity to produce 30,000 barrels per day.
Wow.
So this is really a large growth industry that partly what's driving the expansion in the soybean processing and why we're building this plant in Castleton is because of this potential demand.
And if I may, the big difference, if I'm correct there, Bill, is that the renewable diesel has the characteristics of diesel fuel. It won't gel up like the biodiesel used to do. Yeah. Is that correct, Bill?
Correct, yeah. The renewable diesel actually has a lower cloud point than diesel, and is considered a drop-in fuel. Biodiesel has to be blended and has some gelling, concerns in the wintertime. The renewable diesel does not have any of that. Can be dropped straight into the pipeline, and it is definitely a good product. That in fact, that's what the plant there, the Marathon plant in Dickinson, that's what it's making, is renewable diesel.
And the plant in Castleton is not currently set up to create fuel, but it creates the soybean oil that's the feedstock to make that fuel.
Okay.
That is correct.
Wow, that's super interesting. So I don't know if this is an answer that you will have or offhand, but in terms of, say, between the diesel and the renewable diesel from soybeans, are you getting a similar amount of power, or I don't know if it's going to be combustion out of it? Are you getting the same amount of power from the diesel to the renewable fuel, or is there kind of a drop off in how much power or energy you're able to get out of it?
Yeah, I'm not an expert as far as but I think it's the cetane level is equivalent in renewable diesel to regular diesel. So yeah, it's a very similar power out from that renewable diesel.
Wow, very interesting. Well, Bill, we're running out of time here. We got to get caught up with a few more of our sponsors. But before we go, could you remind those, again, that are just joining us or missed the last time about the plant, the ribbon cutting, the little open house that you're doing, and if people want to get more information about the plant or maybe look into options of signing up to send beans to the plant this year, next year, where they could go to get that information and when that open house is again?
Sure. Appreciate the opportunity to share that again. You go to our website at ndsoy.com. You can find the information there. You can call in at 701-895-1010, extension 1. and one of our merchandisers can also fill you in on what we're doing. But on August 7th, all producers are welcome to come and visit us and learn about what we're doing from 1 to 5 p.m. And then community people are invited from 5 to 7 p.m.
Awesome. Bill McBee and North Dakota Soy Processors, appreciate you coming on and sharing a little bit of information with the crush plant and aviation fuels.
Yeah, we appreciate the opportunity to share and be a part of your program.
Awesome. We appreciate it as well. When we come back, we got a few more ag topics to touch on. Bill's going to share a little bit about his experience in the Air Force, and we'll do a check on the forecast as well. If you have a last-minute question, feel free to do so. Reach out to us, 701-293-9000. The Red Wing Shoe phone line. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. And welcome back to the program. Thanks for rejoining us. 150 on this Friday afternoon. A quick rundown on your forecast. Heat indexes will be near 100 degrees today. Actual air temperatures mid-90s. Will be windy with gusts to 30 out of the south and a chance for some showers and storms overnight, mainly focusing towards the Northern Valley and northwestern Minnesota. Saturday, a few morning showers and hazy sunshine for your afternoon. Low 90s, upper 80s again. Humid, still breezy, but at least it's not going to be windy. We'll have gusts to 25 versus almost 40 today. And then as we head through your Saturday evening and overnight Saturday, another chance for some showers and some storms. And we'll kind of repeat that on Sunday, just starting a little earlier in the afternoon, say about 3 o'clock, and then into Sunday night. But the morning and early afternoon of your Sunday do look to be dry, with high temperatures before the rain moves in the upper 80s. Bill, you were telling me a couple interesting things, and I just thought it was interesting, the whole renewable diesel coming from soybeans, and that it's got similar properties, but it doesn't really gel up like normal diesel does.
It doesn't gel up like biodiesel from soybeans used to.
Okay.
It's a new form of diesel fuel from soybeans. The old form would gel up in cold temperatures, which is a big problem, especially around here.
Right.
The new one, according to Bill McBee, has a lower gel point than regular diesel fuel.
Mm-hmm. That'd be great.
Amazing. Wow.
And we're just kind of, speculating here how big of a market that could lead to with soybeans in general, especially if it gets brought into aviation or as another form of renewable fuel. If it's got a similar power comparison to regular diesel, I don't know the behind the scenes things that it takes to make, but it just kind of sounds like a no-brainer if it's logistically
absolutely
feasible to just switch to that.
Yeah. And the market for farmers for their soybeans is tremendous. It's beyond computation. And I was telling you that the big talk in agricultural publications a year and a half ago was how I think it was 6 or 8 soybean factories like the one being built in Castleton were going to get built in 1 year in anticipation of this aviation fuel market.
Right. And he said that the fuel or the oil that's extracted from the crush plant, a lot of that would be going to, or some of that would be going to a biofuel. Was it in Dickinson?
Not biofuel. Renewable fuel.
Renewable
the
fuel.
The
over
old
in
term
Dickinson.
was biofuel, and I know they both sound the same. The old term was biofuel. The new term is renewable.
Okay.
And the renewable stuff has the lower gel point and all of the performance characteristics of regular diesel fuel.
Wow. That's cool. It's going to be fun to see how that evolves just over the next handful of years, because it seems like it's gotten a lot of traction just in the last 5 years alone.
Absolutely.
What will happen in the next 5, especially if all these other crush plants and operations and other plants, when they fully come online.
Yep.
Very, very cool.
Exciting new things.
It sure is. And it's just kind of interesting to think, as someone from non-agriculture background, even to someone in agriculture, this little bean is eventually going to start flying an airplane, or it's going to go into creating all these different textiles or things that the oils or just soybeans in general are used for outside of just basic feed or seed.
Sure. And then to also find out once you burn renewable diesel fuel from soybeans, what kind of exhaust do you get from that? And I would bet, I don't know it, but I would bet it's a lot nicer than regular diesel fuel.
Right. Well, even like insulation on wires, like that comes from soybean oil, doesn't it? Because I think that what it was, or maybe it's soybean oil is in it, but what I believe is that the wire insulation or the housing of the wires, they would keep cracking and whatnot, and they eventually put a soybean oil in it, and that prevented it from cracking.
Oh, and the other one that they're going to test out in Castleton, they found that soybean meal, the other product that you get from a plant like that, will stick to things and put fires out.
Really?
And so it's a really, could be a really good, it could be a good replacement for the foam that firefighters have to use right now. And there are several health hazards with that foam. And that foam ruins whatever you spray it on. This stuff you can wash off.
Wow.
But what does it do at 20 below zero? They got to find out.
That's all just, it's kind of mind blowing just to think about how many different outcomes like I said, the little bean can go to. I mean, it's got so many hundreds, if not thousands, of different directions that it can end up eventually going towards.
Right.
What do we say? We got a couple minutes left on the show, Bill. I wanted to ask a little bit about your career in the Air Force, because you got a long career. I think you said you were between the different reserves and in the Air Force as a whole. You have a lot of years built up into it. What were you doing in the Air Force for so long?
Well, I worked with computers on active duty, and then nothing in the inactive reserve for 2 years. I couldn't get into the North Dakota Air Guard for a couple of years. Finally did, and there I did everything from order paper plates for the cooks to being commander of the mission support group. Everybody on the base, except for the pilots and the maintenance people and the doctors.
Right. So you were telling me a couple of cool, interesting things that the Air Force ended up working with NOAA in terms of
weather connection.
Connection and it was the search and rescue.
Yes, search and rescue.
Tell me a little bit about what that was in your involvement. I don't remember if you were specifically in that or not, but you were telling me the story about it.
I was supervising 60 computer programmers at Scott Air Force Base, Illinois, where the Aerospace Rescue and Recovery Service is. And there was a joint Department of Defense and National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration project. I got that word out, that phrase out. Project to use transponders on NOAA weather satellites and the Doppler effect to compute the location of aircraft and ocean-going vessels down to 1 square mile. They all have a transmitter on them that transmits a signal, and the frequency of that signal will change as the satellite passes over the aircraft or the vessel. And it worked. We launched it in 1982, and it was credited with saving 75 people in its first year. Wow. And they still use it today. NOAA uses it and gives credit to the Air Force for helping develop it. And so far, it's been credited with saving nearly 60,000 people. If you watch the TV show Deadliest Catch, when the Coast Guard goes out to find the fishing vessel, they're still using SARSAT.
So they're using that same program that you supervised, the people that were working on that project along with yourself. Wow. And how many lives did you say it's been accredited to now, saving since its launch in the 80s?
Nearly 60,000.
That is just
if your airplane goes down in the bush in Alaska, they're not going to find you unless some satellite says, yeah, he's right over there.
Right.
Or the same thing in the Caribbean in a sailboat.
What I've only got probably 30 seconds left of the show here, Bill, but what was going through your mind working on that project? What were your thoughts on that type of technology?
Hoped it worked. I did. It launched flawlessly, and they had a semi crash in Oklahoma before the Oklahoma bombing, and it indicated 200 aircraft had crashed. Turned out back then they put the batteries in the emergency location transmitters as they went out the factory. They stopped doing it after that truck crash.
Well, Bill, thanks for being a part of the show today, listeners. I hope you have a great weekend. Jay Thomas Show's coming up next.